Welcome to the Successful Archives webinar. I'm Jenny John and I'll be presenting today. I'm currently a Reference and Circulation Assistant at York University Libraries in Toronto. Previously I've provided virtual reference services in academic and in business contexts. I have an MLIS degree from the University of Western Ontario. Accessible Archives' goal is to make historical information available in easy-to-use full-text databases, where previously it had been locked up in hard-to-use, microformat, fragile hard copies, or as images only. The company has selected primary source material that not only reflects a broad view of its own times, but also provides insight into the issues of the present day. Then the sources are assembled into databases with strict attention to detail. Accessible Archives prides itself on the quality of our offerings. The fully searchable XML text that lives behind the images is created through double key entry rather than utilizing dirty OCR or optical character recognition. And this produces a greater than 99% accuracy and a quality level that provides more accurate search results and presents the user with a clean copy. The full-text search engine retrieves specific information and digital images with pinpoint accuracy. And today we'll cover some of the content in Accessible Archives collections and how to search for it, highlighting the latest additions to our collections. I'll briefly review today's agenda. I'll begin with an overview of Accessible Archives, followed by a review of the primary source subject areas. And I'll discuss the database's search capabilities and provide some examples of content found in a search. I'll then discuss recent enhancements to Accessible Archives and to our search capabilities, as well as provide some examples of searches that take advantage of the search tools that are available through our search interface. And I'll conclude the webinar with information about our service offerings. John Nagy founded Accessible Archives in 1990, and this is a momentous time for the archives as 2015 marks 25 years of making historical information easily accessible to our clients. It began as a hobby based on his interest in American history and gradually blossomed into a self-sustaining business. John was employed in the family firm, a business supplies company in Chester County, Pennsylvania, but he spent his free time learning everything he could about local history and soon became known as his town's unofficial historian. And one source of local historical information was copies of the Pennsylvania Gazette. And John knew that the material would be easier to use if it was in a computer, so he began to key information into a database himself. And this project led him to develop personal relationships with local history scholars, especially those at the University of Delaware. And those relationships led to the birth of his second database, the Civil War newspapers. And the company grew as he began to distribute his product in CD-ROM format to other universities, and Accessible Archives was born. And today, the company is run by John's son, Tom Nagy, who continues his father's vision. And there are several things that make that vision distinct and contrast with many other information aggregators. Firstly, it grew out of a real passion for the content, and the creators of this content have a love for history and what it teaches about our own time. Secondly, they have a mission to make it accessible to a wide audience. And finally, the content is developed in cooperation with individuals who have collected archives of historical materials that they also want to make available to the widest possible audience. Accessible Archives content is distinctive, carefully selected, and you could even say curated, and produced in cooperation with libraries and archives who are motivated to make information available. I think you'll find that this commitment to content shines through every aspect of the databases that we produce. Accessible Archives has retained Unlimited Priorities as its exclusive sales and marketing agent. Unlimited Priorities provide support services to organizations operating within the information arena, including publishers, scholarly societies, libraries, trade associations, museums, and historical societies. And their Archival Initiatives division offers advice to libraries, historical societies, and industry associations in selecting, distributing, and monetizing their valuable archival content. Iris Haney is the president of Unlimited Priorities, another company with a commitment to the library and information community. Accessible Archives aggregates primary source material from a variety of sources and authors to provide many points of view on a historic event or era, giving subscribers a more complete picture of what happened and how they lived. Each entry includes full bibliographic citations as well as accurately transcribed text. Users can easily email search results, and documents are very easy to read thanks to high-quality XML formatting, and the accompanying images help to bring the past to life. Information is easy to find because the database offers full Boolean search capability, string searching, truncation, and search limits. Extensive search help documentation is available for users needing assistance with setting up their search. And if a discovery service is used by your institution, users can quickly find Accessible Archives content through the federated search interface for fast and comprehensive research. Consumers recognize Accessible Archives' distinctive collection of content and its commitment to making that content easily searchable for a variety of purposes, from local history and genealogical research to scholarly inquiries. Accessible Archives collections are now in use by universities, historical societies, primary, middle, and secondary schools, individuals, and research libraries throughout the world. Titles will continue to be added with ease of use as a prime consideration. And as you can see, organizations as diverse as multi-campus universities, single-campus colleges, public libraries, and genealogy researchers find Accessible Archives content and its support services invaluable. What we'll be covering today is an overview of the scope of our collections. The content of these collections is 18th and 19th century primary source materials, but they have a deep relevance for understanding the social movements and forces that shaped 20th century America and that continues into the 21st century. The African American experience encompasses newspapers written by African Americans for an African American readership. And this is the start of an arc that began in slavery and eventually led to the 20th century civil rights movement and to the election of an African American president, an event almost unimaginable to the people who published and read these newspapers. But the roots are here in Accessible Archives collections. American County Histories is one of the most comprehensive collections of its kind, presenting American history from a local and regional perspective. This is a story of a young country, told by people in their own hometowns, from the earliest Eastern settlements to the Western movement. The Civil War presents one of the crucial turning points of American history, and does so from the point of view of the men who actually fought in the war. Here you'll find perspectives of battles by the generals who conducted them, and also from the soldiers who fought in them. The roles of women are detailed through magazines and newspapers produced by the founding mothers of the struggle for women's rights. The emergence of women from the home into the political and business spheres is one of the key developments of our day. This is where that movement began. The birth of the nation is preserved through newspapers that document the transformation of individual British colonies into the United States of America. And entering the 20th century entails coverage of the Spanish-American War, World War I, and the beginning of the Jazz Age. The African American experience is captured in a set of 9 African American newspapers from the 19th century. These newspapers reflect the depth of the African American experience in the 1800s. They include first-hand reports of events, many biographies, vital statistics, essays, and editorials, as well as poetry and prose. And these newspapers provide a perspective that is different from the mainstream press because they were written by African Americans for African Americans. Rounding out the collection, The Liberator was a weekly newspaper published by William Lloyd Garrison. It was the most influential newspaper in the antebellum anti-slavery crusade. I'll highlight some of the newspaper titles included in the African American Experience collection. The Christian Recorder, the first newspaper in this collection, was the result of John Nagy's friendship with the Reverend J.P. Campbell of Bethel Church in Philadelphia. Reverend Campbell was also a bishop in the AME Church. He was the one who preserved a full run of this newspaper at his church. The Christian Recorder is now uniquely available through Accessible Archives. This is just one example of Accessible Archives' relationship-based approach to growing content that make our databases distinctive. The National Era was edited by John Greenleaf Whittier and had a high literary content. And this paper serialized Uncle Tom's Cabin. The Provincial Freeman was published in Ontario by fugitive slaves who fled the U.S. for Canada. The Colored American's goal was to educate its subscribers. It published a great deal of information in list and encyclopedia format, but did not provide much news coverage. Note how many of these newspapers date from before the Civil War, and think about their commitment to providing news and information in an era when most African Americans couldn't attend school and many could not even read. These are examples of the newspapers themselves. One of the key benefits of Accessible Archives is that you can view images of the original pages while the full text is available for reading and searching in high-quality XML conversion. The Liberator was a weekly newspaper published by William Lloyd Garrison in Boston. Its first issue contained the motto, "Our country is the world. Our countrymen are mankind." Garrison was a journalistic crusader who advocated the immediate emancipation of all slaves. After the end of the Civil War, his last issue announced, "My vocation as an abolitionist is ended." After 35 years and 1,820 issues, Garrison had not failed to publish a single issue. He spent the final 14 years of his life campaigning for women's suffrage, pacifism, and temperance. The National Anti-Slavery Standard was the official weekly newspaper of the American Anti-Slavery Society, an abolitionist society founded in 1833 by William Lloyd Garrison and Arthur Tappan. It was the sister newspaper of the Liberator, also published by the Society. With perhaps the exception of the Liberator, the Standard was the most influential voice for abolition leading up to the Civil War. The National Anti-Slavery Standard was founded by the husband and wife team of Lydia and David Child, who were both affirmed abolitionists as well as successful writers, and Lydia Child was the author of the poem "Over the River and Through the Wood." And using the motto, without concealment, without compromise, the Standard sought to extend the rights of slaves across the country. And the paper contained many very strong personal and emotional accounts of slavery. And complete imaging for the National Anti-Slavery Standard is available on the website, along with many keyed articles. Completion of the database will occur in December 2015, which is right around the corner. Accessible Archives is committed to being the world's foremost authority on U.S. county history. The large county history volumes include chapters with detailed coverage of local history, geology, geography, weather, transportation, lists of local participants in the Revolutionary and Civil Wars, government, the medical and legal professions, churches and ministers, industry and manufacturing, banking and insurance, schools and teachers, local celebrations, fire departments and associations, cemeteries, family histories, health and vital statistics, roads and bridges, public officials and legislators, and many additional subjects. These are not Wikipedia-style summations where a particular county gets a single, concise article. Rather, what you find here are book-length presentations of the county history from multiple sources. And yes, these are old books, so many of them can be found on the web. And the unique value proposition that Accessible Archives offers is to bring these titles together to form the most comprehensive county history collection available. You can read an individual volume page by page or search the entire collection from a single query. A user may read or browse the text on a page-by-page basis in the original format merely by scrolling down the screen. And the table of contents is hyperlinked to each chapter as well as to each individual illustration. In short, you can search an individual county, a full state, or across the entire nation. Again, the county histories consist of hundreds of thousands of pages of content with new text and images added monthly. Researchers will find it rewarding to return again and again to accessible archives when conducting research. As noted earlier, county history content is being added continuously. The Mid-Atlantic, New England, and Southeast are definitive collections of regions with a particularly rich documented history and a great local pride in regional traditions. Accessible Archives has now extended into collections of the West and Southwest, assembling the most influential volumes of local history in regions that have not been as extensively documented. We intend to cover the entire U.S. within the next year, adding the Central and Midwest regions. Although I'm not here to sell anything, I want to mention that pre-publication discounts are available, and we all know how important it is to save money. The Civil War collection is comprised of 7 parts. Part 1 is a newspaper perspective. The major articles from the Charleston Mercury, the New York Herald, and the Richmond Enquirer are included in this collection. Part 2 presents the soldier's perspective, and the documents in this part provide an in-depth look at daily life for the troops. Part 3 focuses on the general's perspectives, and documents in this collection provide a look at the battles with an emphasis on strategy and tactics. Part 4 is a Midwestern perspective, and this is informative and eclectic coverage from 7 Indiana newspapers. A Midwestern perspective is produced in a publishing partnership with Vincennes University. Part 5 is Iowa's perspective, and this is comprised of memoirs, pamphlets, and regimental histories from the University of Iowa collections, produced in a publishing partnership with the University of Iowa. And Part 6 focuses on Northeast regimental histories, and this collection includes details of particular units filled with photos, portraits, maps, and other illustrations. Part 7, the newest part of this collection, consists of abolitionist books from the Abraham Lincoln Library. These volumes are reference materials that are comprised of memoirs, speeches, biographies, essays, etc. They reflect both points of view on the abolition of slavery. And Part 7 is produced in a publishing partnership with the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library. Godey's Lady's Book was intended to entertain, inform, and educate the women of America. It is well known for its extensive fashion descriptions and plates, but in the early issues included biographical sketches, articles about crafts, science, health, recipes, and home remedies. Each issue also contained 2 pages of sheet music written to play on the piano at home, so it's an interesting source for studying popular music of that era. And gradually, the periodical matured into an important literary magazine, and you'll find book reviews and works by Harriet Beecher Stowe, Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and many other 19th century authors. And of course, Godey's Lady's Book was also a vast reservoir of handsome illustrations, which included hand-colored fashion plates, all of them available from Accessible Archives. We've increased the number of images included in our collection of Godey's. Images for each page are now available. Godey's illustrations are now searchable by image type, so you can easily find fashion plates, advertisements, and more. And the editor of Godey's was Sarah Josepha Hale. She brought substance to the magazine and wrote frequently about the notion of women's sphere. By the Civil War, Godey's was a major force in American publishing. Today, it's considered to be among the most important resources for 19th century American life and culture. We're grateful for feedback from our customers, which has allowed us to discover and correct errors such as the missing thumbnail images in vast amounts of data. Parts of Godey's Ladies Book was produced in a publishing partnership with the CIC, the Committee on Institutional Cooperation. Descriptors for the color graphics were supplied by the Library of Congress. The Lily, the first newspaper for women, was published from 1849 until 1853 under the editorship of Amelia Bloomer. She remained a contributing editor after the Lily was sold until its last issue published in 1856. The Lily always maintained a focus on temperance, but gradually began to include articles about other subjects of interest to women, such as childbearing, education, and the issue of women's rights. Additional topics included dress reform, physical education for women, voting rights, and protests against laws unfair to women. The National Citizen and Ballot Box was a monthly journal deeply involved in the roots of the American feminist movement. It was owned and edited by Matilda Jocelyn Gage, an American women's rights advocate who helped to lead and publicize the suffrage movement in the United States. The National Citizen and Ballot Box was produced in a publishing partnership with Wilson College. An interesting note, L. Frank Baum, who wrote the book The Wonderful Wizard of Oz in 1900 and its 13 follow-ups, most of which I read as a child, was Gage's son-in-law. Gage and Baum were very close, and her influence permeates the Oz books. The heroine of the series is a brave girl who saves her friends and their land. In addition, many of the various realms throughout Oz were ruled by women. The Revolution, a weekly women's rights newspaper, was the official publication of the National Woman Suffrage Association, formed by feminists Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony to secure women's enfranchisement through a constitutional amendment. Particularly rich in political reporting, it contained many reports from feminist conventions with transcriptions of speeches and audience response. All three of these early feminist publications were produced in a cooperation with Wilson College, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Gazette provides the reader with a first-hand view of colonial America, the American Revolution, and the New Republic. It offers important social, political, and cultural perspectives of each of the periods. Thousands of articles, editorials, letters, news items, and advertisements cover the Western Hemisphere, from the Canadian Maritime provinces through the West Indies and North and South America, presenting a detailed glimpse of issues and lifestyles of the times. Also included is the full text of such important writings as the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, Letters from a Farmer, Thomas Paine's Common Sense, the Federalist Papers, and much more. It is claimed that the publication later re-emerged as the Saturday Evening Post. South Carolina's first successful newspaper, the South Carolina Gazette, was begun in 1732 by Thomas Whitmarsh in Charlestown and released its final issue in December 1775. A middle-of-the-road paper, the Gazette published news of Europe, what the royalty had worn at the last formal event, news of the colony, notices of births, deaths, marriages, and estate auctions, and advertisements, including those for runaway slaves. Along with its four sister newspapers, it contains a wealth of information on colonial and early American history and genealogy, and provides an accurate glimpse of life in South Carolina and in America immediately prior to the advent of the American Revolution. The Virginia Gazette was the first newspaper published in Virginia and the first to be published in the area south of the Potomac River in the colonial period of the United States. As Williamsburg was the center of growing tensions in the Virginia colony, which led to the American Revolution, The newspaper was one of the centers of activity of the capital of Virginia and dutifully published accounts. When at the urging of Governor Thomas Jefferson, the capital was relocated to Richmond in 1780, the newspaper followed. The final issue of the Virginia Gazette, produced in Williamsburg, was April 8, 1780. And the Virginia Gazette was produced in a publishing partnership with Colonial Williamsburg, College of William and Mary, Johns Hopkins University, the Library of Virginia, and the Historical Societies of Maryland, Massachusetts, and Virginia. As you can see from these images, keying the text rather than attempting to utilize dirty OCR, even though that process is much less expensive, is paramount to producing a quality product that is easy to use, produces accurate results, and provides relevant articles with clean text. Frank Leslie's Weekly was an American illustrated literary and news publication started by the publisher and illustrator, Frank Leslie. It followed a tested and proven formula of carefully combining elements of war, politics, art, science, travel and exploration, literature, and the fine arts in each issue. Each issue included 16 to 32 illustrations, making Frank Leslie's Weekly an excellent source of historic images. Some of the important events reported and illustrated include John Brown's raid at Harper's Ferry, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, the First World War, the Klondike Gold Rush, Arctic exploration, and the San Francisco earthquake. Literary content included stories by Louisa May Alcott, H. Irving Hancock, Helen R. Martin, and Ellis Parker Butler. In the later years, there were illustrations by Norman Rockwell. The entire collection of images and text for Frank Leslie's Weekly is now complete and available on the website. Accessible Archives offers the only complete collection of Frank Leslie's Weekly. Accessible Archives offers a simple and powerful Google-style search that users will instantly be familiar with. Full Boolean search capabilities are available for those who want to use them, and searches can be refined with various limits for publication type, source, and date of publication. These are the results of a search from a periodical source, in this case Frank Leslie's Weekly. And the result set appears as a list of individual articles that match the query, and you can click to view the entire article or the keywords in context. Clicking on a result brings up a bibliographic citation and the full text of the article. In this case, there are also illustrations included with the article, and search terms are highlighted so that you can understand immediately why you retrieved that particular result. As mentioned previously, Godey's illustrations are available as full-color, high-resolution images, of which this is one example. Accessible Archives is unique in offering these, and have tremendous utility not only for historians of fashion, but also for theater companies and anyone who needs illustrations of 19th century life and costume. As noted earlier, one of the exciting changes to the archives over the summer is that Godey's illustrations have been enhanced to allow searching by image type, so that users can search for illustrations that are fashion plates, engravings, sheet music, and more. This is a table of contents of one of the volumes of the Memoirs of General Ulysses Grant, found via a search for a book source. Users can view the actual table of contents of the book, with each listing hot linked to the full text. This example of a page view demonstrates the high quality and clarity of the imaging. Most users won't want to read primarily from images. The text can also be viewed in an accurate XML conversion for easy readability and searching. The particular value of having book images is that it ensures that all the illustrations are available. And these illustrations include portraits, maps, tables, etc. Note the clarity and detail available in this image of General Grant. We're constantly improving the accessible archives. And you'll notice that there are square pictorial icons for each collection throughout the presentation. These are being used in our search results, browse, and the view collections page to help users more easily distinguish the content that they're using. Descriptive text about each collection provides context for users when a mouse is placed over each icon. An example of a search results page with icons is below. We've streamlined access to subscribed content by including a direct link to the search page from our website's top menu. Users are never farther than a click away from the content that they need. We've also included browse and search buttons on each collection page, which allow users to browse or search the items in the collection with just one click. A new area on our website has been created for library administrators. The Administrator section can be accessed by clicking Account Information at the upper right of the search page. And this is where we make product announcements, provide support, and deliver account or customer record information such as IP range definitions, username, password, login definitions, subscription dates, subscription access, and branding indication. There's also an Announcements tab on the search page, which we are using to keep users apprised of new developments at Accessible Archives. We've improved navigation within our website, and users can easily find their way back to the search page after clicking one of the options on the main menu. And we've clearly labeled the search areas in our website so that users will know exactly what is being searched. We've also updated the copyright date throughout our website. You'll notice that the look of our search interface has changed. We updated the search page to incorporate feedback and suggestions from our advisory board of customers and power users. It now has a simple, clean, more modern look with better functionality. Our website is now viewable on various screen sizes and resolutions, so that users can now easily access Accessible Archives material on desktop computers and on various devices. Updated labeling on the search results pages makes navigating between results clearer. We've also corrected a small number of miscapitalizations identified during quality control. We've improved our behind-the-scenes technology by adding new hardware and software so that the search response time is now faster than ever before. And users will find our new, clearer search results messages more helpful when considering how to refine searches. Nobody wants a flood of search results. However, when large result sets are generated, it is good to know what is happening. And to this end, we've ensured that our on-screen messages are as helpful as possible. As a researcher, I'm very excited about two new search tools, proximity search and the ability to boost search terms to influence the order in which documents with these search terms appear in the list of search results. I will also highlight some of the other search tools that users will find useful for targeting searches, and these are and, not, truncation, wildcards, date search, and search options drop-down boxes that are customized by publication. Proximity search allows searching for two terms that are separated by a specified number of terms in either direction. For example, a search for Klondike and mining within 5 words will yield documents that contain both words separated by no more than 5 words. Either Klondike or mining can be the first term in these results. To use a proximity search, enclose two terms in quotes and use a tilde directly after the quotes, followed by the number of words of interest. Do not include spaces. Here's an example of a search result from a search for Lincoln within 4 terms of slave. In this document, slave occurs first. The importance of a search term when searching for 2 or more search terms can now be weighted. And to specify the weight of a search term, use a caret followed by a number which represents the weight. The higher the number, the higher the search term is ranked in the results list. When specifying the weight does not change the number of search results, only the order in which they're presented. Accessible archives, like most search engines, assumes an AND search if no Boolean operators are specified. In other words, search results should contain all the terms entered in a search query if they're not connected by search operators. Not is the opposite of AND, and specifying a term behind not means that a search result cannot contain that term. And not is incredibly useful for removing results that are less relevant. Some users, like me, prefer to type less when entering search queries, and abbreviations can come in handy when constructing a query. Accessible archives allows using plus as an abbreviation for and a minus for not. And truncation or stemming and wildcards are also useful for targeting searches. Including an asterisk at the end of a search term will include results that contain terms that begin with that term. And wildcard characters can be used to specify searching for terms that can have any character represented by that wildcard. I'll now present examples of searches that combine some of these tools. These are the results of a search for Lincoln and Grant, not Army. And this search removes specific references to the Army, which can bring results related to their non-military relationship to the forefront. And my first query for Lincoln and Grant returned many documents related to the war, so I modified the query. As you can see, boosting Grant by weight of 10 changes the order of results, bringing the documents mentioning Grant higher in the results list. A search for Alamo and states that begin with A results in documents from county histories of state abbreviations that begin with A, such as Alabama and Arizona. Using dates is an important way to limit a search, especially when looking for key documents within hundreds of thousands of pages of material. Accessible Archives provides partial and specific date searches. And pubdate allows you to search for any part of the date, day, month, or year, and thus you can use the pubdate field when only part of a publication date is known, or if you wish to search a date range, such as a year, a month, or a specific day in any month of a year. And the pubdate field can also be used to specify a complete date, as in the third example. I wanted to see how the terms freeman or freemen are used in each decade of the 1800s, so I set up this search. The ISO date field is used to specify an exact date, and some examples are included on this page. I created this search to see what was written about Lincoln on the day of his death, which was April 15, 1865. Another improvement to our search interface is that search options are customized according to the publication being searched. As mentioned earlier, we've recently added image type searching to Godey's Ladies Book, and there are many image types to choose from, including advertisement, fashion plate, cartoon, and illustration. As you can see, the search box option drop-down box contains various ways for users to limit their search. And when a publication is selected, the search options available change to reflect fields available for that publication. These are the results of a search for an image type of engravings and autumn, which will hopefully yield autumnal engravings from Godey's Ladies Book. As mentioned earlier, there's extensive help documentation available to help you achieve more targeted searching. Click Help on the search page to be taken to online help. Shown here is part of the table of contents for our help section. And click on a topic to be taken directly to the relevant section. and I highly recommend referring to the help documentation to search more effectively. Services and support provided by Accessible Archives include free webinar demonstrations and training. MARC records for each collection and each title are provided free of charge to our customers. URLs that take users directly to search or browse specific titles or collections. The ability to brand with your logo or college name. And counter or sushi compliant usage reports. Content is discoverable through a variety of discovery services partners, and these are EBSCO Discovery Service, Ex Libris SFX and Primo, OCLC WorldCat Discovery Service and Knowledge Base, ShipIndex LLC, and Summon from ProQuest. Accessible Archives offers access plans to meet various budgets and needs. As the name suggests, the annual subscription option offers access to all databases for 1 year. Permanent ownership allows you to buy the content that is most important to you. Discounts are available for owning complete collections. As well, large databases are broken into affordable sections to allow you to begin your collection with year-end or one-time funds and to budget ahead. Accessible Archives also offers a lease-to-own option. Last but not least, publishing partnerships are available for libraries and archives that own primary sources to be published. As noted earlier, Unlimited Priorities is the exclusive sales and marketing agent for Accessible Archives. Please contact Iris Haney if you'd like to review our collections, arrange a no-obligation trial, place an order, or discuss monetizing your archives. Are there any questions? Thank you very much for attending this webinar. You'll receive a copy of these slides via email soon.